Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. I'm Sherry Atwood, founder and CEO of SupportPay, and I'm joined here by an amazing panel of Danny Spiros, Barbie Brewer, and Eric Sosa, focusing on why traditional financial wellness in the workplace is a lie and how to address a real solution to a crisis no one's talking about. And that crisis is when family and money collides. SupportPay is on a mission to end family fights over money. I am a former Silicon Valley executive who experienced this myself, whether it was managing expenses for my daughter with my ex-husband, loaning my family members and friends money, or managing my mother's finances with my siblings. The entire process was time consuming, conflict ridden, and stressful. And that's why Support Pay was born. And with me, I have an amazing panel of industry experts, Danny Spiros, Barbie Brewer, and Eric Sosa. So before we jump into our first question, I'd like each one of you to give a quick background on your background and experience. And we can start with Danny.
Hi, Sherry. Thanks for having me on here. Yeah, as you mentioned, my name's Danny. I lead the people experience function at Automation Anywhere. And in my career in the HR world, I've had the opportunity to build cultures and work on benefits, work on compensation, and work with a lot of different people in a lot of different countries. And one of the things that drives me these days is sort of how we leverage technology to create an experience that's the best one for each individual person. So thanks for having me on here.
Thank you so much, Barbie.
Yes, hi, I'm Barbie Brewer, and I've been working in the Silicon Valley since the 90s, and including companies like IBM, Cisco, Netflix, GitLab, and currently at Camunda. And I've got two kids, a French exchange student, three dogs, an ex-husband, a current husband, a mom, a sister, and lots of financial fun to think about.
Thank you. And Eric.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Looking forward to a great discussion. So I'm Eric Sosa. I am what you would describe as a benefits lifer. I've spent my entire working career in the benefits space. Started out as a consultant and an old pension actuary for about 10 years, and then spent the bulk of my career leading benefits for a large Fortune 50 company. I have since retired, which is why you don't see a brand under my name, but I do serve on various advisory boards and do some spot consulting and also split time between being a grandfather. But still mission driven. I think employers and benefits are really, really important. And so I'm still committed in my retirement to advancing the cause on behalf of large employers and getting it for the benefit of employees.
Thank you. All right, let's jump into our first question. So it starts with understanding the financial stressors of that employees are facing. So how do you see the intersection of family and money impacting employees today? I'll leave it. Who wants to jump in first?
I could kick it off, Sherry, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I mean, my perspective is kind of balanced between both the sort of sitting on the employer side, but also sort of sitting, a little bit on the sideline right now. But I think sort of my observation is I think employers are starting to get and understand the need for financial wellness. I think that's hitting the market. I think we've gone from physical wellness to emotional wellness to financial wellness. But unfortunately, I think as employers tend to do is we tend to look at it from, okay, financial wellness from what's important to me as the employer. So we spent a lot of time talking about maximizing the match on the 401k, saving for retirement, and all the things that go with it, and maximize them, and the power of compounding interest. But I think the reality is we sometimes forget to sort of be looking at what's important to the employee side of the house. And an interesting stat is I think as a lot of folks are experiencing and seeing that 90% of adults are managing money beyond their own retirement, their own area. They're dealing with children, they may be in divorces, or they're in the sandwich generation dealing with their parents. So I think it's really the intersection is I think we're getting there, but I also need to make sure that we're directing it. And the old adage of trying to meet employees where they are is really, really critical. And I think really the opportunity where it is today.
And Barbie, from a personal, obviously you're an expert in the benefit space, but even from a personal side, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, it's challenging. I am divorced and share custody of my children, and there are expenses. My son has probably had six surgeries. My daughter is going on surgery number five. There's a lot of kind of medical stuff coming up. I think on Monday we have a doctor's appointment that she's going to meet with 7 doctors in one day. So as you can imagine, that a lot of this adds complexity, especially when you add the component that my ex and I both have an HSA high deductible plan, which adds to the financial complications of that as well. Then I also co-manage a rental home with my sister. And so the rent collection and then the distribution and the HOA fees and repair fees, things like that. Managing this all on a spreadsheet or it can be distracting from the day. So I can definitely speak from a personal perspective of the kind of time I need to spend and having to take screenshots of the expenses to prove that I actually spent it and then store that somewhere and share it some way. And it just gets complex and to me it's an unnecessary distraction, but necessary to do.
And then, Danny, can you speak from an employer standpoint, how you're seeing this as it looks, the intersection of family and money when it comes to benefits and how your employees are dealing with this today?
Yeah, I mean, kind of along the lines of what Barbie talked about, but we've got employees, and my job is to look after their work experience primarily. I can't manage everything in their world. However, employees' work experience has morphed over the last few years in unchangeable and sort of permanent ways, in the sense that maybe people work 8 to 10 hours in a day, but those 8 to 10 hours sometimes start early in the morning, last into the evening with interruptions in between. And it's not uncommon to interrupt personal time as well with work. And so the blend, integration, whatever you want to call it, between work and life is getting blurrier and blurrier. And it's important for us to recognize that things that impact people at home and in their personal lives come into the workplace, and things that impact them in the workplace impact them at home. And so we have to think about, and one of the things that we look at is more of a holistic, how do we care for the person? Um, the stresses that come up from a financial standpoint and between inflation and other things that have just been going on in the rising housing costs and things along those lines, you're just seeing more stress that's being placed on people, and it's not always the same sort of one size fits all solution to solve for that. And so that's what we're seeing, is that we're seeing more stress interacting in different places in the workplace. And I'd love for everybody to just be happy, healthy, and focused. And whatever we can do along those lines is what we try to do.
Well, that leads then to our next question. So you now see that there is this growing intersection between family and money and work. How have you seen the financial stress show up in the workplace? And is this impacting either your own personal or your employees' performance, their productivity, their well-being? So I'll start with you, Barbie, based on, your incredibly demanding life both at work and at home. Where are you seeing this kind of showing up in the workplace?
It'd be hard. I have to be completely honest with you, Sherry. It would be hard for me to know.
Yep.
Certainly when employees show up stressed, that affects performance, but I don't know what the stressor is. Whether that's an argument they had with someone that's completely unrelated to finances right before they showed up at work, or whether that's ongoing financial stress. I try not to get too much inserting myself into the private matters of my employees unless they choose to share it. But I do know that it can have an impact, and I do know that even just having to be in spreadsheets for myself during the day to work some of this out means I'm not doing work I could be doing otherwise as I'm trying to figure some of those things out. But there's a lot of different things that come at our employees. The current environment right now, at least in America, is a stressor. Finances are a stressor. Lack of confidence in the economy is a stressor. There's a lot out there right now that are flying at our employees. So anything that we can do to help is good, because there's a lot going at them. So just anything that we can do, I think is good to consider doing.
And Eric, from a industry perspective, because I know that you sit on a lot of boards and a lot of advisory councils, what are you seeing across sort of the industry today when it comes to finances, financial well-being, family out there, and how that's impacting employees and even employers?
Yes, thank you, Sherry. So yeah, I always think this is a great question, because a lot of employers are really pro to show me how this impacts productivity and absenteeism. And to Barbie's point, I think that's sometimes a very, very hard area to sort of bridge through financial to exact number on it's causing this level of absenteeism or this level of loss of productivity. Because I think, to points I made earlier, people are complex. They've got lots of things going on in their life. But if you just sort of take a look at a lot of things that we know from the statistics and from the data, most employers that have frontline populations, the reality is most employees are living paycheck to paycheck. Most of them, half of marriages end in divorce. 90% of people are dealing with go through. So I think the trend and the issues we're seeing is clearly there's a there. And while it might be hard to try to pin to a number, but I think you're seeing emerging anecdotal evidence, at least in the initial period, to show that there's a challenge here. When I was working, sometimes errors on the assembly line or errors happening somewhere tend to sometimes can be drawn to someone had that argument that morning or was dealing with financial stress. When I worked in compensation, people coming in for a raise because I've got this other financial burden on my family. I've had my sixth child. I just need more money. And the reality is employers, it's not we would love to just solve this by paying employees more, but you can't. So I think the challenge that's showing up here is we sort of know that there's a there, and spending a lot of energy in trying to measure it is still important, but it shouldn't be lost on sight, though, is to providing, though, in the real case, employers that are making progress in the space or those that are actually providing real-time solutions and less about things like the importance of saving. Yes, we think people understand that, but give me a tool, give me a resource that'll help me do that, that'll help me manage my area that will go through. So I think that's a little bit kind of where I've seen. I think that the stress is there. I think some employers and some people chase around trying to show the numbers, which is going to be really, really hard to go through. But I think there's enough data points that will tell you that there's an issue here. And the issues and the values and sort of really providing real-time solutions are for employers and where the employers have distinguished themselves, both from generating brother brand loyalty and brother employee value proposition. Does that help, Sherry?
Oh,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And of the stressors that people are facing. So even for you, Danny, as you're looking at it from a benefits perspective, while as Barbie said, right, you're not knowing exactly where the stresses are coming from. Do you see this level of stress and this conflict even more recently impacting your employees?
yeah, I think um, the changes we've seen over the last few years, I believe, are going to be lasting. Um, I can I can tell from my own personal experience that I get stressed when I've got something that I'm not able to resolve. So if there's a problem in my life or at work or at home or anywhere else that I'm not able to resolve, it puts stress on me and it changes how I sort of focus on the other things that I've got at hand. Um, if I extrapolate that out to some of the things that Eric talked about and Barbie talked about, I mean, we've got large numbers of our employee population at any company. I'm not saying mine specifically, but at any company where people are under additional financial stress than they were in previous years. We've got large numbers of our employees that may be in sort of sandwich generations where they're caring for kids, caring for parents, or both at the same time, blended families and things along those lines. Even sibling and cousin relationships, a lot of us have even financial ties with those things, and all of those things can cause stress. And if we're not able to resolve them during the day, then that causes more stress. If we are taking time out of the day to resolve them, then that's time away from offices where we're probably also causing some stress inside the workplace as well. So although it's hard to quantify specific things, I think everybody can identify with the fact that um, stress exists. We experience it on a regular basis, and some of those causes are becoming more and more universal in the workplace.
Well, then when it comes to employers seeing this, or more importantly, the kind of the future, right? How do they help their employees, especially the employees as different family dynamics come in? So really, I want to ask each one of you, what does the future of financial wellness benefits look like? And how are you thinking about meeting the real everyday needs of your employees? So I'll say more from an industry perspective. We'll start with you, Eric. What are you seeing based on what was around previously or what will be in the future?
Sure. And some of this is going to be scattered with, feathered in with my my experiences on the employer side. I'll start with kind of and I alluded to it earlier. I think the future will evolve from kind of couple different angles. One aspect of it is, you know, moving from information and access to actually tools and resources that can go through. The second area I would say is an evolution from things that are, and I can say this now that I'm unemployed, things that are really very much important to the employer, but maybe not as much important to the employee, and sort of shifting to understanding what's really relevant and important to the employee. And we've used this term over and again, meeting employees where they are, meeting them in the times of needs. And we as an industry have, done better or worse in some cases in doing those two aspects. So I really sort of recognizing it, particularly germane to the discussion here today, is recognizing that sort of the financial aspect of folks is not just, saving for retirement or maximizing the match, as I said earlier, but it's recognizing that what people are dealing with in finances are not just exclusive to just this, me and my spouse and my family go through, but generally they are. I've got a, divorce. I've got stepchildren. I have a step grandson, a grandchild. So go through. And I was also managing, things for my father, who was an elderly person, and sort of managing too. And with everything that's going on the fraud side and the scammers going place. So I think the trend needs to be for employers to be successful is to sort of kind of making that to transition from, again, providing education, which is important and great. But lots of times when I've done that with employees, I said, great. How do I save more money? How do I pay my bills? Give me something tangible that I can use. So it's from moving from information to tools, and also moving from a perspective that probably is a little bit more heavily weighted to what's important to the employer, to really what's weighted to really what's important to employees and the issues that they're raising. The populations are getting more diverse. They're getting different. The employment patterns going to gig workers and all three. So a lot of the traditional tools that might have been in play for the 401k plan, maybe lots of employees aren't even in the 401k plan, or they're in their spouse's 401k plan, maximizing there. So recognizing that the needs are growing and diverse, and sort of starting from that aspect and going through. So that's kind of a little bit of sort of, if my crystal ball to where successful financial wellness will really kind of transition those two aspects, two dimensions.
And I'll say me, even personally, when I was in corporate America, to your point, is how do you help me with my day to day, or how do you make my day to day easier so I could be a better employee? I'll open up to both, to either Danny or Barbie. Do you guys have any other thoughts on what you really see the future of financial wellness or family financial wellness could be, or even should be, and what should be employers be looking at for the future? I'll give it
Oh,
to you.
yeah, I'll start. I mean, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would have looked at offering a series of benefits that met the sort of expected needs of our employees. Um, Over the past few years, we've sort of expanded that to make sure that we're, and I guess I would use the phrase greatest good for the greatest number of people. So we expand benefits to cover as many people as we can with some of the different unique needs that we've got. I don't think that's good enough anymore. And I think the future of financial wellness is really financial wellness, any benefits, the entire employee experience is really going to be based around how do I help this one person with the one thing that they need to be able to do their best? Knowing that is almost impossible, but there are with between artificial intelligence and some of the other things that we're doing these days, there's better and better ways to do that. And then solving for it can be even more challenging. So the things I look for is creating more bespoke solutions for people. So things that truly address people, like Eric says, where they're at. And to your and Barbie's experience, like what are the things that are on an individual's mind so that they can be their best in when it comes to their work, and essentially be happy enough when their work is done that their family doesn't tell them, hey, you know what, that job is killing you. I really want people to experience their full family life and their full work life as best as possible. So I'm looking for things that address each individual person's needs. And it gets harder, but there's ways that we can do that. I also look at things that are going to essentially have strong adoption. So things where 401k, lots of people use it. Great, check. But what are some other benefits that we could offer from a financial and other wellness standpoint where it benefits a ton of people and I'm able to give that bespoke experience at an affordable rate? So those are things I think about.
Barbie, do you have anything else to add to what you're looking at or what you think the future should look like?
Yeah, I would say as a practitioner, very much to riff off what Danny is saying there, it is more bespoke now. I could say I'm going to offer everyone a free gym membership, and everyone might sign up for it, but only 2% will actually go on a, 3 to 5 days a week basis. So, it's hard to know what everyone's at. Some people might want to use that money to pay for a dog sitter. Other people might want to use it to go to the gym. Other people might want to use it to help their parents, in some need a parent has. So I almost feel like and I don't want to be too controversial here, but I almost feel that the vendor business model needs to change. Instead of saying if you buy this, you're buying it for your whole company, saying that if you can offer this to your own whole company, but you will pay for the people who are using it. And if that was the business model that providers started to use, I would be a lot more welcoming to bring more providers into my company,
Yep.
so that I could provide a cafeteria option, for lack of a better term, to my employees and say, you have this allocation of dollars you can spend towards your benefits. Where would you select to use them? Right. And to bring them what they need based on what they need, not based on what I think they should need. Now, there's certain things that I think companies should promote more, like just medical benefits, right? You might not think you need it, but when that car bangs you on the road tomorrow, you're going to wish you had it, right? And there are certain things that we should standard provide to our workforce. I also think saving retirement is really important, but beyond some of the real basics, I think the business models of vendors changing to provide more flexibility for employers to provide more choice for their employees would be wonderful.
Yeah, and adding to that, we'll kind of jump into our final question here. Not only am I honored to have you guys here on this panel, but you are also part of the Support Pay Advisory Board that's really helping us, pioneer this future and really look at our solution from Support Pay of how do we address as many employees and each employee's different use cases so that it can, to your point, Barbie, be adopted and be used and be seen as valuable by far more number of employees than you would say maybe a gym membership, right? And then being able to report that back to the employer and show the impact that it's having on their employees. So I wanted to ask each one of you, so what drew you to get involved? I'm sure you guys get a ton of asks and requests to join a bunch of boards or to have your time, but how do you see Support Pay really pioneering this future and especially when it comes to a unique family financial wellness benefit? So I'll start with you, Danny. What drew you to join our board?
You know, the call was right at a time when I was working with my wife and her family around taking care of her my wife's mother, so my mother-in-law. And I really got a firsthand experience around what are some of the stresses that I face on a daily basis in my own life, um, caring for parents, how to deal with the finances. Um, and we were going through power of attorney and things along those lines to sort of set that up. And it made me realize that like this is where real stress comes from. And to see that there's a solution out there in Support Pay that helps sort of address the family finance issue head on, provide transparency, and help us navigate some of this stuff, phenomenal. So I'm excited to be a part of it and be able to leverage my own experience and my own personal experience here. So thank you,
And
Sherry.
thank you. And Eric, do you have any thoughts on, or would you share why you uh, agreed to join our advisory board?
Sure, sure. So I think it sort of really boils down to, again, I'll end where I started. I'm a benefits lifer, so I'm still working here because I think, there as much good as I think I did in the employer side of the house, I think there's still work to do. I think what struck me as I've kind of transitioned to this phase is sort of looking back at how many things did we roll out as employers or did I roll out as employers in communications that when it came into my household were completely irrelevant to me. They really just didn't apply. And sort of marrying that up with what I was dealing with, and I mentioned earlier with my dad, and just to give a 30-second story, my dad, we moved him out of his house into a condo, and he moved from being close to one bank here to being close to a different branch of the same bank. And thankfully, I had put my name on all of his accounts, but I got a call from the bank that my dad was literally taking out large chunks of money from this one branch and driving over to the other branch to deposit it because he thought he needed to move the money from one area. That was a really eye-opening to me, like what we think is maybe simple and what go through when we're dealing with elderly parents or aging, that there's a huge exposure. Thankfully, they called me, said your dad's walking around, driving around with $50,000 of cash in his car. But sort of put that in today's world with scammers and other areas. So the ability for a tool that can actually recognize that I have a need that goes beyond my own little isolated world, I really saw as a value add that I just thought was unique in the industry, and that's what led me to join and go through. So, you know, part of it is it's my DNA, and I think the solution set here, and I think this issue is a huge issue that candidly right now is not really solved for in the industry. So I'm really looking to promote solutions that go there.
Thank you. And finally, Barbie,
Yeah.
what do you attest?
So sure, your mission really resonated with me, I think, when it really gets down to it. And what I love about what Support Pay is doing is it's not about any particular socioeconomic group. I don't care if I'm a billionaire. I might still have complicated family finances to deal with. I don't care if I'm very economically challenged. I may still have family dynamic issues to deal with. So to me, it transcends every job category, every socioeconomic issue, I mean, it transcends it all into a mission of helping people be able to manage their finances better, reduce conflict, and have more visibility into what's happening amongst their families. And so your mission just resonated with me full blast, full blown. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining this interesting and amazing conversation, really rethinking what financial wellness looks like and really putting a focus on family financial wellness here at Support Pay. Going to our mission. Our mission is to help people end the family fights over money. We're trying to end family fights over money, really trying to take as much of that out, the conflicts and the fights out. And if you're interested in learning more about Support Pay and our offering, us being able to share our incredible utilization rates, how we can directly impact about 90, even 90% of your employees, please visit us at supportpay.com/employers. And you can always reach me directly at sherry@supportpay.com. So we look forward to meeting more of you and having more conversations and hopefully again addressing what employees need today is those two biggest causes of stress, money and family. So thank you everybody for joining.